Hello there and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. What I'd like, if you're willing, is for you to volunteer to be my hypnotic subject. And what I'm going to do is to stick your hands together just using hypnosis so that no matter how much you try, you'll find that you cannot unstick your hands until I tell you otherwise. Now I was going to show you how to do this by using a volunteer on camera, but there's no way that you can tell whether or not they're acting. So I thought it'd be a lot more fun if I stuck your hands together and you could actually see this in action and take part in it a little bit. It's going to be more fun and you're probably going to learn a lot more by doing it this way too. Before we get started, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. First and foremost, I have no intention on this lesson of telling you how or why this works. I'm going to leave that till the next lesson. Between this lesson and the next one, I want you to watch this video over and over again and see if you can work out why this works. Pay close attention to the words that I say and the things that I do and see if you can pick up on all the little subtle things that make this work. Secondly, I thought it'd be a good idea to explain where you might use this. There are two places that you would use this little routine. The first one's really obvious, it's on stage. You'll very often see a hypnotist do this on stage right at the beginning of a show when they've called for their volunteers and they've got way too many people. So you really want about 10 people for your stage show, but if a couple of hundred people come up, the best thing that you can do is a routine like this one, just to see which of those people are the most responsive. Now, everybody can be hypnotised, but around about 10% of the population are really, really good at going into hypnosis, and these are the people that you really want to keep on stage for a stage show. 10% at the other end of the scale are not very good at all. Now, they will respond to hypnotic suggestions in a therapeutic environment, but on stage, it doesn't really work with those guys. Everybody else falls somewhere in between. So if you're doing a stage show and you call loads of people up on stage, you do this routine, you stick their hands together, and the people that have a bit of a panic and they're trying to pull them apart and they're getting a little bit flustered, they're the ones that are going to be the best subjects. They're the most responsive to hypnotic suggestion, and because they're overacting a little bit, it's entertaining to the audience. So you keep those ones and you send the other guys back so that they can watch the show. So that's where this is most commonly used. Where you're going to be using this before you get to that level is as a way of demonstrating hypnotic techniques to people that ask you about hypnosis. So this could be someone you've just met in a club or a pub, it could be your friends, it could be some people at work. It's a really cool way of showing people how hypnotic suggestions can cause a person to have a physiological response, such as their hands being stuck together, just from you talking to them. So it's just from your words, which is pretty cool. It's very quick, very easy to do, and most people, not absolutely everybody, but most people will respond to this. That, in other words, most people's hands will become stuck together. So not absolutely everyone, but most people will. Now in the next lesson, I'll explain to you why some people's hands don't get stuck, what to do about those people, and what you say to them. There's a little bit of a get out clause that you can use. So I'll explain all that in the next lesson, as well as how this works. But for today, we're just going to go through this. And what I'd like you to do is to think about using this on your friends just to show them a little bit about what hypnosis is about. And then as you learn more about formal inductions and that kind of thing, you've already primed people into believing that hypnosis is a very effective way of causing them to have a reaction. So let's imagine, if you will, that I'm up on stage. I've just called for my volunteers, of which you are one. You've come up onto the stage, you're a little bit curious about what's about to happen, and I'm about to give you some instructions. So this is how I might do that. In a few moments, I am going to stick your hands together just using hypnosis. What I'd like you to do, not just yet, but in a moment, you will put your hands out in front of you like so, with your palms facing each other about shoulder width apart. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, you will notice that you can imagine between your hands there is a magnetic force that causes you to move your hands together. You will notice that you can feel or imagine a magnetic force on the outside of your hands that is pushing your hands together. You'll notice that as you listen to the sound of my voice, this force will become stronger and stronger until your hands move closer and closer and they touch. When they touch, you will interlace your fingers like so. And with your arms straight out in front of you, you will look at those hands right out in front of you. And after a few moments, I will count from 1 to 3, and you will attempt to try to unstick your hands. But you'll notice that the more you attempt to try to unstick them, the tighter your hands are stuck together. In fact, you will not be able to unstick your hands until I tell you that you can. Okay, right, let's get started. Stand up if you haven't already. I want you to focus on this. Just imagine that you're with me on a stage rather than we're doing this through the internet. Put your hands out in front of you like so, palms facing each other. Focus on the area between your hands. Now, as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'd like you to imagine that there is a magnetic force acting between your hands that is causing you to move your hands together. You may even be able to imagine or feel a force on the outside of your hands that is pushing your hands. This force is getting stronger and stronger, causing you to push your hands together. You can feel this force causing your hands to move closer and closer. Every word that I say causes this force to get stronger and stronger. And as your hands begin to move closer and closer, you can feel them pulling closer and closer together. Now, you don't have to resist this in any way, just let it happen. And as you feel it happening now, you can imagine this force pulling your hands even closer and closer. And as your fingers begin to touch, interlace your fingers and squeeze your hands together. That's fine. If your hands are not touching just yet, just taking a deep breath and imagine that magnetic force is getting stronger and stronger. And as I count from 3 down to 1, it forces your hands to lock tighter and tighter together and your fingers to interlace. 3, 2, 1. Strongly push together now. That's fine. Now, with your hands locked tight together, hold your arms straight out in front of you and stare at those hands in front of you. Imagine, if you will, that there is glue oozing through your fingers. You can imagine that you can feel that glue oozing all over your hands. You may even like to imagine that your hands are carved from a solid block of wood, just one solid piece of wood. As you look at those hands out in front of you, I'd like you, in a moment, to attempt to try to unstick your hands, but the more you attempt to try to unstick your hands together, you'll notice they become tighter and tighter. As I count from 1 to 3, on the number 3, you will attempt to try to unstick your hands tighter and tighter together. So 1, 2, and 3. Attempt to try to unstick your hands, but the more you try, the more you find they are tighter and tighter, locked together, stuck tighter and tighter together. And relax. Just relax your hands, and as I count down from 3 to 1, all the glue goes away, your hands return to normal, and you can release them easily. 3, that's fine, just feel it beginning to ooze away. 2, and separating your hands, and 1, that's fine. Now, before I leave you today, what I'd like to ask you to do is to watch this video again. Pay very, very close attention to the words that I say, the things that I do, and see if you can see why this works. Now, it doesn't work on absolutely everybody, so it might not have worked on you, but the chances are that it did. If it didn't work on you, I'll explain why that is in the next video, and I'll also explain what you can say to people if it didn't work on them, because there is a beautiful get-out clause for this one. I'll also explain exactly how it works, but between now and then, watch this again, and see if you can work out why it works. Also, you may like to show this video to other people and see how they respond to it, because it's very interesting to see from an external point of view the way this affects people. Now, it goes without saying that in a normal situation, and when you're doing this on other people, you're going to be in the same room as them. So you can adjust it a little bit to how they're responding. If the person's hands haven't quite touched, then you're not going to talk about their hands being locked together. You'll continue talking about them moving together until they do touch. Now, because we're doing this over the internet, I obviously can't see when that happens with you, but when you're doing this with other people, you do want to adjust it a little bit to suit that person. So that's all for today. In your next lesson, I will explain how and why this works and what to do when it doesn't work, and also how you can use this as a precursor to an induction that will lead you into a stage hypnotic routine. So until then, you take care, have a wonderful day, watch this over and over again and see if you can work out how and why it works. You take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.